Okay, Shavua Tov, we are on Chaf Aleph Amud Beis 21b, about 8-10 lines, are the last of the narrow lines. The Gemara says, Taner Rabbanan, Ner Chanukah mitzvah la'anicha, the Ner Chanukah, it is a mitzvah to place it al Pesach Beso on at the opening of his house. So the simple reading over here means it always has to be at the opening of his house. And therefore, it would be regardless of whether he has a courtyard or not. It's at the front of the house, and that's Rashi's opinion. Tosfos says no. This is specifically talking about a house that doesn't have a courtyard. It opens directly into public street, and therefore he puts it at the door where the public is. However, if he has a house and then a courtyard, and then a gate in front of the courtyard to the public, he would put it at the doorway of the gate of the front of his property, so it would be closest to where the public is. So the Machlokes Rashi tells us here as to how close or direct to the public domain does this have to be. And on the outer side of the doorway. However, if he lives on a upper floor, so not on the ground level, then he puts it in the window that is closest to the public domain. And if it's a danger time, and there used to be times where it was dangerous for Jews to have lights only in the church, could you have any candles? And if you had candles in your private domain, that would be an insult to the church at night. And so therefore, he couldn't light candles in the window. So then it's sufficient already to just put it in on your dining room table, and that's enough. And there's a machlokes in the Rishonim if this is only in a time of danger, but if you're not in danger, you have to show it to the public either in your window or at the door. Or others say no, even not in danger. Once it was permissible on account of the danger, you can then always put it on your doorway. On your table. Amar Rava. So Rava says, you need another candle in order to be able to utilize the light of that other candle. And as we saw the other day, the halacha is that you're not allowed to benefit from the menorah, from the Hanukkah candles. But Rashi says over here, not only can't you benefit from it, but you need another candle in order to show as a heker, as a recognition that you have another candle for light and the menorah is just for the mitzvah. Now, the v'iyek madura, a furnace, an oven, some sort of other candle, so let's say a fireplace or something, so then you don't need a shamash itself, you don't need the extra candle by the menorah, because the very fact that you have another flame in the house, you have a fireplace, is sufficient evidence that the menorah is for the miracle, and you're benefiting from the light of the fireplace. Now, and also if he is a honorable person, even if there's another fire, he needs another candle, because without that, it's not going to be enough of a recognition, because in Adam Chashav has multiple lights in the house. In any case, this is the halacha that you need to light visible to others, and others can recognize that it was done as a miracle, as a recognition of the miracle, and therefore you need another candle. We are in 21b, Adam. So my Hanukkah. What is Hanukkah? So we said in our Mishnah that there are candles and wicks, or fuel and wicks that we can use for Shabbos, and the discussion in the Gemara whether you can use those or not for Hanukkah. So the Gemara says, "My Hanukkah, you haven't introduced us to this yet." So the Taner Rabbanan, we have in a brisa, and this is in again we saw this earlier, the brisas that deal with the miracles that happen on certain days and the calamities that happen on certain days, the days that you fast and the days that you celebrate. So B'chafei b'Kislev, on the 25th day of Kislev, Yom Hanukkah Tamanya. There are 8 days of Hanukkah. So one of the rules are that you don't eulogize. If somebody passes, you don't eulogize them in these days. And you also don't fast on these days. Why? Because when the Greeks came into the Beis Hamikdash, and we know that they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash and they put in idols, Timu Kol Hashmanim. As a part of that, they also made all the oil in the Beis Hamikdash tamei. And when the household of the Chashmonaim was strong enough that they were able to recapture Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash v'nitzchum, and they beat them out of that area. They found that there was only one shemen, one oil that was still intact with the seal of the Kohen Gadol. And there was only sufficient oil to light for 1 day. And some have the text that says not even for 1 day, which would answer why we have 8 days of Hanukkah. Famed question, if they had enough oil for 1 day, so the miracle was only that it lasted 7 extra days, not 8 days. So why do we have 8 days of Hanukkah? So if the text really is that, and the way it is in the Sheiltos of Achai Gaon, so then it says it didn't have even enough for 1 day. But the way we have it, actually, it says that there was enough for 1 day, but not enough for 8 days. So why did they make 8 days of a miracle? The simple reason would be to remember that it lasted for 8 days. That's a simple reason, but there are hundreds of other reasons given as to why there are 8 days. One of them is that 1 day was a celebration of winning the battle, and the other 7 days was for the miracle of the oil. However, the simple interpretation is that that's not the case, because first of all, we don't find in the Bryce and the Gemara that they made a celebration of the battle, and as we know from history that battle it didn't end right then. The battle continued for another 2 years against the Greeks, and it was pretty brutal. So the miracle of the Ner is what they're celebrating here. And the battle. Well, no, once they're lighting the candles, they could also make another day for the celebration of the battle war. But you're right. I mean, it would not be the typical way. However, in the tefillah, in davening, when we say the Al Hanisim, there we do say primarily the mention of the miracle of the battle. And so the tefillah is a thanksgiving for winning the battle, but the menorah is primarily for the celebration of the miracle of the oil. In any case, it was a miracle. They had it sufficient, or they were able to light 8 days from the Lashana Acheres for the future year, the next year. And there's a lot of talk about why didn't they establish it as a holiday that year, only the next year. The next year, they established it as a holiday for Halil and Hoda'ah, for praise and thanks, which the halacha says means that it's not a holiday like other holidays where you have to have a festive meal. And therefore, all the festive meals that you have on Hanukkah are not the same as category of a Yontif Suda like Purim or other holidays. And that there's an obligation of saying Hallel, an obligation of giving thanks. In any case, that's the establishment of Hanukkah. Tanan Hassam, we have a Mishnah in Bava Kama in the Halach of damages. So it says, if a smith is hitting an ironsmith, a metal worker, it hits his hammer on a piece of metal and a spark goes flying and ignites someone else's hay or field or whatever, chayiv. So this fellow is chayiv. He's obligated to pay the damages. Gamal shatan pishtan. Or if you've overladen your camel and the camel's walking through a street and the flax, the linen on the camel catches fire, and he's walking through the public domain, but it was so overlaid, and he squeezes in that some of the packaging or some of the linen that's on the camel squeezes into the doorway of a private domain, in whether it's a shop or something, and it catches fire from the shopkeeper's candle, and then it burns down the building. The camel owner is obligated because his camel is what's overladen, and therefore his camel is what caused the fire. However, if the camel was not overlaid, and it had enough place to pass outside, but the shopkeeper put a candle outside his shop, now the one who's irresponsible is the shopkeeper, and the fire that happens on account of the shopkeeper, and therefore he's obligated to pay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, however, Rabbi Yehuda says, b'ner Chanukah patur. If this candle that he put out there was a Chanukah candle, which means that it was his mitzvah, his obligation to put it out there, so then the camel owner is the one that should have known that it's Chanukah and I have to be careful, and so he's the one that's negligent, and he's the one that has to pay. And the shopkeeper is exempt. Well, at least the shopkeeper is exempt. Whether the camel is obligated or not is not in this Gemara, in this Mishnah. And since he did it by obligation of the mitzvah of putting Chanukah candles there so that people could see the miracle, he had to do it at the doorway, as we saw before, and therefore he's exempt. Amar Avina, Zos Ameres ne Chanukah mitzvah lanicha techasar. What I see from here is that the Chanukah candle has to be low down, because otherwise he should have put it higher, higher up than the traffic, and therefore we see that it has to be low down. How low down? It must be within 10 tefachim of the ground, because that's where a normal candle, normal space of a person is. Because if you think he's allowed to have it even higher than that, then we can tell him, true, you had a mitzvah to do, but you should have kept your candle out of the public way so that nobody's going to be damaged. You should have put it high up. The Gemara says, well, perhaps that's not enough of a proof. Perhaps you're right that perhaps really it could be even higher than 10 tefachim off the ground. And the reason why we can't tell him you should have put it higher is because then nobody's going to do the mitzvah. If I have to get ladders out and make a platform high up to put my candle, to put my menorah up on the roof, then I'm not going to want to do it. Maybe he won't do the mitzvah if it's too difficult. In any case, that is the halacha, that it has to be within 10 tefachim from your platform, from your area. Amar Rav Kahana, Darash Rav Nasan Marvin Yum Yishmei Rav Tanchum. Rav Kahana said in the name of Rabbi Tanchum, and we are now in 22b, Chav Beis Amud Aleph, Ner Chanukah shehinicha l'mayla v'chavama pesula kasukah k'mavud. We have a halacha that in the sukkah that's too tall, it's taller than 20 amma, it's going to be invalid. And a mavoi, which is, we saw at the beginning of the Masechta, is an alleyway that needs a korah, a beam across, in order to demark the end of the alleyway and the end of the private domain before it goes to the public domain. The halacha is that those need to be below 20 amma. If it's higher than 20 amma, you have to bring it down. The same for the Chanukah menorah. If it is above 20 amma, it's invalid. And the reason is because people won't notice it. And the purpose of Ner Chanukah is so that people see the miracle. They are reminded of the miracle, Persume Nisa, spreading the miracle idea of them, and the knowledge. Well, if it's above where the eye is going to see it, it doesn't count. Obviously, we saw earlier, if somebody lives on a higher level, he does put it in the window, because it's 20 amma, within 20 amma of his space. But for the people, but for somebody in his own space, he can't make the menorah more than 20 amma, which is about 30 feet high. Tues points out that by sukkah, where it's invalid on a biblical level, it says it's invalid. By the mavoi, by the cross beam at the alleyway, it says bring it down. It tells you the remedy. Here it doesn't tell you the remedy, because as we've seen, the Ner Chanukah, if it's too high, you're going to have to extinguish the flame, lower it, and reignite it, because you have to light it in the proper place, as we'll see later in the Gemara. adlaka is a mitzvah. And therefore, since the lighting of the candle is what creates the mitzvah, so you're going to have to extinguish it, lower it, and put it back up. That's too much of a lengthy teaching. So we just say that it's invalid if it's above 20. Amar Rav Kahana, Darash Rav Nosson bar Yumi, another teaching from Rabbi Nosson in the name of Rabbi Tanchum. What does it mean when it says in the Torah that the brothers took Yosef and they threw him into the pit, and the pit was empty, it had no water? If it says in the Torah that the pit was empty, do I not know that it has no water? Do I need to tell you it's empty, it had no water? Empty means no water. What it means is mayim ein ba. So why did it say it had no water? Mayim ein ba. It only didn't have water. It was empty water pit without water. But it did have nachashim v'akravim. It did have scorpions and snakes. The Torah, however, says that Reuven tried saving his brother and told the brother, don't kill him, throw him into the pit. So throwing in the pit was trying to save him. So how can it be that the pit had scorpions and snakes? That's not a real saving. So some Rishonim say that they didn't know it. When they looked in the pit, they didn't see the snakes and scorpions, but it was there. Others say that what they were doing was a test. They said, look, if we could be killing him unintentionally, but with the wrong calculations. We intentionally kill him, but we think we're doing the right thing, but we don't know. However, let's throw him into a pit that has snakes and scorpions. That way, we won't be the one killing him. It's Hashem. And if Hashem wants him to die because he deserves it, so then the snakes and scorpions will do it. And if not, they won't. Which is an interesting question that comes up in the way we look at the world, because people have free will. Can my free will hurt someone in a manner that they are not destined to be hurt? So that's a paradox in my free will versus the hashgacha, the direction of Hashem in what happens in the world. And when they collide, when they are contradictory, which one overpowers the other, which one of these concepts? A lengthy discussion, not our time, but this is a primary source for that discussion. Amar Rabba. Rabba said, the Chanukah candles, right? We saw earlier in the Gemara that if you have a house that opens up directly to the public domain, according to Tues, a house that opens up to a courtyard, so then you would put it by the doorway. And it's only if you can't, then you would put it in the window. So if you put it by the doorway, it should be within a tefach, a size from the doorway. That's where you would put the menorah. The heicha manachle, where in the doorway? So Ravacha says on the right side, when you walk in on the right. Rav Shmuel medifti mismo, that, and Rav Shmuel says that you put it on the left side. The hilchas of mismo, and the halacha is that you actually put it on the left side. So that this way you're enveloped with mitzvahs as you walk in on the right side. You have the mezuzah, and on the left side the Chanukah menorah. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Asi, Asa lahartzas mois keneged ner Chanukah. You're not allowed to count money in front of the Chanukah candles. Why? Because it's degrading that you're using the Chanukah candles for a mundane thing like that. When I said this in front of Shmuel, he said, does the candle really have some holiness? Why? Of course, that applies even if you don't consider it kedusha in the sense of like it's something donated to Beis Hamikdash. It has the concept of not misusing it in a degrading way. Just as we see with the blood, that the mitzvah is that when you shecht certain animals, that you have to cover the blood in afar. And this is for a bird that you shecht as well, and some animals. Depends on chaya and oath, chaya and behema. So in any case, you need to cover it. The Tani we learned for shafach, the Torah says, and you will spill its blood. v'chisa, and you will cover the blood be'afar with dirt, with dust, dirt. So the mesha shavach yichasa, use your hand that you shechted the animal and poured the blood. That's what you will cover the blood with. Shalechas and a beregel, and don't kick dust onto it, dirt onto it to cover it. Shalei mitzvahs b'zuyis alav, because that's doing a mitzvah in a degrading way by kicking dirt as the mitzvah, and mitzvah should not be degraded. And so don't kick the dirt onto the blood, rather do it by hand. Now, so what we see is that even though he fulfills the mitzvah, and the blood clearly is just blood, it's not that the blood has a holiness in and of itself, but you can't degrade the mitzvah. So too over here, in the Ner Chanukah, even if it's not dedicated for the Beis HaMikdash, and it's not that level of Kedusha, nevertheless, you don't degrade it. On account of not because you're misusing hekdesh like a me'ilah, but because you're degrading the mitzvah by utilizing it to count money. By my name, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. The question was asked of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, what about the adornments that you make in the sukkah? So the nois sukkah, the beautifications of the sukkah, can you benefit from them during Chol HaMoed or Yantiv? Now, as there are two halachas that pertain here. There's one, a concept of muktzah. There's a concept of muktzah that applies anytime you took something and you dedicated it for mitzvah, it can only be used for that mitzvah. Like the walls of sukkah have a muktzah concept. That once you've dedicated for the wall of the sukkah, it becomes the wall of the sukkah, and you can't use it for anything else during the yantiv. The entire time of that mitzvah, it's dedicated to the mitzvah. Same halacha is also in the oil of a Chanukah menorah. The candle, the oil, whatever oil you put in for the mitzvah is dedicated to the mitzvah, unless you make a condition. Tosfos over here deals with what about the extra walls. The halacha is that a sukkah minimally needs 2 walls plus part of a third wall. What about if you have a 4-wall sukkah? Can one of the walls be used on Chol HaMoed or something? Can you take it down? Because that's, even though that it's dedicated for the sukkah, but it's not dedicated for the necessity of sukkah, because I have a kosher sukkah without it. So Tosfos deals with that. Same would go for Hanukkah, because if I can for the menorah, we saw you only need a half hour or something like that for the candle to light. If I put in enough oil in my cup of the menorah to light, let's say 3 hours, so the remaining oil perhaps is not, as long as it lit for more than a half hour, it was the remaining oil would not be dedicated to mitzvah, because it's not a part of the obligatory mitzvah, the necessary part. That's a question. We're not dealing with the halacha now, but that's something to think about. That's all in the aspect of the muktzah. But there is another aspect of its degrading. So the muktzah may not apply in Chol HaMoed, because we know Chol HaMoed don't have the same rules as Yantiv. But degrading the sukkah, the mitzvah of sukkah is for the entirety of Yantiv. And so anything that you make for the beauty of the sukkah would be degrading to remove that part. So he says, just like they said, you're not allowed to count money in front of the Chanukah menorah, so too you're not allowed to use the adornments of the sukkah. Amar Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef responded in regards to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi's response. Rav Yosef had said before, he challenged this concept even of the misusing. It's a Morid Avram, by the master of Avram, meaning by God. Like, why in the world would you tell me a quote for me, a pasuk, a source from the menorah, which is not the basis of the of this halacha? Why don't you quote the original source, which was the blood of the kisur, the blood? So Gemara says the reason is you're quoting something as a source when something is not necessary. So Sukkah, Tanya, Sukkah, we have a Mishnah about, we have a Brisa about, we have an original text. Chanukah, Tanya, but Chanukah is not taught. How do we have a text like this for Sukkah? The Tanya. We have a Brisa specifically about the question we've been asked about. Sichacha kilchasa. You made a schach, made a covering, kalacha, like it needs to be. Branches, a great thing. Now you adorned it, v'itra b'karamim v'sadinim, and you adorned it, crowned it with kerchiefs and silks, hametzuyarim that are colored, v'tolaba egozim and farsakim, and you hung in your sukkah walnuts and some fruit, farsek, in the modern Hebrew that's a peach. I don't know if that's the original. Shkedim or imonim, almonds and pomegranates, parchile anavim, and clusters of grapes, va'atra shel shibolin, and woven crowns of wheat stalk, yeno shemana mesiltos, also wine, oil, and fine flour. There's a minhag to hang fruit in the sukkah. There's a minhag to hang bottles of wine and oil, olive oil, and flour. So if you do any of these, you're not allowed to use it until after the last day of Yontif. The im his name, however, if you made a condition and you said, I'm hanging this up, but I'm only for the first 3 days. After that, I'm going to take it down because I want this wine on Yontif or something like that. Tonight, everything depends on what his tanai, what his condition was. So you say have a halacha specifically in the brisa. It talks about it. So why are you bringing me Chanukah as a source? The basis for all of these is the halacha of dam, and Chanukah is no less a source than sukkah itself. But the concept is you don't do something degrading with a sukkah, with a mitzvah. If you're doing a mitzvah, you don't do it in a degrading way. Itmar, so we have a statement, Rav Madlikim Ner Laner. Rav says you're allowed to take a Madlikim Ner Laner. You're not allowed to take a twig and go to one candle that has a Hanukkah candle lit, and then take the twig and ignite it and move it to a second as a source of fire for another menorah. You're not allowed to use to light a candle from one to the other. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, Madlikin, you are allowed to light from one to the other. And as we'll see later in the Gemara, the idea is that they would take it. We're talking about taking a match from one to the other. And later, the Gemara is going to talk about actually lighting one candle directly from the other. So another halacha like this. Rav says you're not allowed to take tzitzis off of one four-corner garment and move it onto another four-corner garment because you're diminishing from one to take to the other. And Shmuel says you are allowed to from one garment to the other. Rav and another machlokes is Rav says the halacha is not like Rabbi Shimon Begreira. And Shmuel says the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon Greira. The Gemara is going to tell us this halacha of Greira in a moment, but it's based on the concept that we know in regards to Shabbos. We talked about several times that Shabbos needs to have maleches machsheves, intentional action. So Amar Abaye says, Kol mili demar ovid karav. My teacher, Rabba, did all of the halachas that he did, he would follow the opinion of Rav. Labar mihanit las, besides for these three. The Ovid Kishmuel, he would follow the opinion of Shmuel on these three things as halacha. Which three? Madlikim and Erliner. Now you're allowed to use a medium, like a match, and light from one candle and then light another Hanukkah candle. Umatir mebegel lebegel, and you're allowed to take tzitzis off of one garment and put it onto another four-corner garment. And the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon in regards to greira, which is, as we said, we'll see this brisa. The Tani Milur Rabbi Shimon Omer. Rabbi Shimon says, "Garer adam mita kisav asafsel." A person is allowed to drag a chair, a table, a bed through his backyard, through his property. As long as not intending to make a furrow, to make a ditch. If he wants the ditch and he's and he's pulling the bed or chair or table in order to make that indentation in the ground, to make that furrow and ditch, well, then for sure he's not allowed to. But if he's not intending, and as we know for Shabbos, meleches machshavas aser Torah, the prohibited action is anything that is intended, and he's not intending over here. He's just trying to schlep the table from one side to the other, and it happens to make an indentation, so be it. We'll see later in the Masechta when we bring this halacha that this is only if it's not certain that it's going to make that indentation. But if it's certain that it's going to make the indentation, you're not allowed to do that. You have to, then you can't say, I didn't intend it. Of course you intended it. You know that if you pull the table, it's going to make that furrow. So for sure, it's going to be prohibited even according to Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, in our case, is only talking about a case where it's not certain to make that indentation. It's not certain to dig into the ground. And you don't want it to. You don't specifically want it to. Or intend to, at least. You don't intend for that to do it. You're just pulling the table. It's going to be permissible. And the halacha is like this. This teacher was sitting in front of Rabbi Aba, this one of these chachamim, and he said this. Time of the Rav mishum bizum mitzvah. The reason that Rav says you're not allowed to use a medium and to ignite, let's say, a twig from one Hanukkah candle, and then move it to use it to light another candle, because it's degrading to the menorah, because you're lighting a twig, which is not a part of the mitzvah. Amar luhu letetzisulei. He says, don't listen to him. Time of the Rav mishum dekamachish mitzvah. The reason is not because of a degradation; it's degrading, or rather because he's weakening the mitzvah, because by doing so, the flame is going to be weaker, or it looks like he's taking some of the oil out. My benayu, what difference does it make if it's because it's weakens the candle or because it's degrading? It's the same. It could be benayu the kamadik mishraga l'shraga. The difference would be if he directly lights one candle from the next. If he directly lights one candle from the next, that's not degrading. He's using Hanukkah for Hanukkah. He's using the mitzvah for the mitzvah. That's not degrading. However, if it looks like he's diminishing the original candle, it's still diminishing. So the kamadik mishraga l'shaga madlik busy mitzvah mishraga l'shaga madlik. So then he's allowed to light from one candle to the other, and there's no machlokas about that. Everybody would agree, he says, that you can light a Hanukkah candle from another Hanukkah candle. You just can't light a twig from a Hanukkah candle, even if you intend to light another. But the one who says, because you're weakening the one candle, then even one candle to the next is going to be diminishing the flame in the one, and you're not allowed to do it. Masav Rav Avia. Rav Avia asked a question. Sela shel meiser, and this is when we're going to turn to 22b, Chaf Beis Amud Beis. Sela shel meiser, a coin of meiser. And as you know, the second tithe was meiser sheni that the owner himself would have to bring to Yerushalayim, and he would eat it in Yerushalayim, but he's not allowed to eat it wherever he lives. Now, the problem is, if you're going to have to go to Yerushalayim every other day with the produce that you picked. So the Torah says what you do is you're going to transfer it onto a coin, and when you have enough that you transfer it on the coin, you bring the coin to Yerushalayim, buy food, and that's going to be the meiser that you eat there. Can you take this coin of meiser, and can you use it as a weight to swap out another coin? So sela shel meiser sheni, you have a coin of second meiser, and you take ein shoka keneged din hazav. You can't take other non-hektish coins and weigh them against it to see that they are equal. Now, basically, what they would do is they would then bring it to Yerushalayim, and you need to change it out to purchase, and you want to make sure that it's equal. So you're going to take another coin and weigh it against that. And if you do so, it may end up being that the coin that you're weighing is either less or more, and then it's not a good swap. And so you're going to end up using this as a weight, but never for the benefit, not necessarily for the benefit of meiser. So you're using the meiser coin for a non-miser use, for a non-hektish use, and that's not okay. So if you weigh something against it, even if your intention is ultimately to swap other miser onto it, you can't do it. And the reason is because it may not end up being used. If the basis of the machlokes of Rav and Shmuel is even in a case where you're directly igniting one candle from the other, and so the reason is because you're diminishing it. Aval bekinsa, but if you use it actually with a non-hektish match or twig to light it, Asar Shmuel would agree. So then I can say, okay, Shmuel also agrees to the concept of misuse or a degrading use of hektish, and he's not arguing on the twig. He's only arguing when you're directly lighting one candle from the next. So this teaching of Ma'aseh Sheni is not going to be a contradiction. Eli Amris Bekinsa Nami Shari. But if you tell me that he disagrees and Shmuel permits to use a twig to light from one candle to the next, this will be a contradiction. Because over here you see that you can't use one coin to use as a weight for the other coin, and because it's degrading to use a coin as a weight. And over there you see that Shmuel says we're not concerned about degrading uses of hektish. Amar Rabbi says no, that's not a question. Over here, I know it's going to work. I'm going to light a wood, and I'm going to be able to light another candle. So no concern that I'm not going to end up using it for a mitzvah. Over there, there's a concern I may not end up using it for a mitzvah, because when I take the one coin that's hektish, and I take a non-hektish coin and I weigh it against it, it may end up being heavier, and therefore I won't use it as a weight, as another buyout. Or it may be too little and I won't use it as a buyout. So I don't know that it's going to be a good swap, and I may not end up doing it. And then it'll end up that I used the hektish as a weight instead of an actual transaction. And that's the reason that over there everybody would agree you can't use it. But in regards to the Hanukkah menorah, Shmuel would say, no, I'm allowed to use a twig or a match from one candle to another, because even though I'm utilizing the Hanukkah candle as a source of fire, but I'm using it for another candle of Hanukkah, and that's going to be valid. Masav Rav Sheshes. So Rav Sheshes says, well, what about I can prove to you that they would ignite one candle from another candle, even with a match intermediary, because it says like this. It says that by the menorah. Now, where do you place the menorah in the Mishkan or in the Mikdash? Outside of the paroches, in the main room of the Kodesh. Mechutz paroches ha'edus yaroch. You set it up outside of the paroches, of the curtain, in front of the Holy of Holies. So the Gemara says, did Aharon, according to one version in Tues, the question is, did Aharon need the light of the menorah? He didn't need the light of the menorah. All 40 years that Bnei Yisrael were in the desert, they had a pillar of fire that was a source of light. So they didn't need the light of the menorah. So what's the light of the menorah for? Rather, it's a testimony to the people that come to the world. That the Shechina is living amongst Yisrael. My edus, where's the testimony? Amar Rav, so Rav said, Zuner Ma'arabi, this is the western candle, that you put in the same amount of oil in this western candle. I'll give you a moment which one it is. But the western candle, that you put the same amount of oil in all of the cups of the candelabra, of the menorah. And yet it would remain lit the rest of the day until the next evening, and from that one, he would light the other candles. And it was in that candle that he last the Kohen Gadol when he was fixing the menorah. He would end up with it, right? So what is this Western candle? So Rashi says that there are the two opinions in the Gemara whether the menorah was east-west or north-south. If it was north-south, so the Western one was the center, the middle menorah candle. If it was east-west, so the Western one, so you're coming from the east, and the Eastern one is the first one you met, and that is it says that the candle has to be Lefnei Hashem, the one closer to the opening of the ark. So therefore, the Western one would be not the westernmost at the end of the menorah, but the Western one in from the first. In any case, it was one in, and that's the one that was lit. But what we see is that was the source of light, and from it, he would light the rest of the menorah. So you see that he would use a medium and take fire from the original mitzvah fire and light the others. Even though that in the meantime, he was lighting the intermediary, just a wick, a match of sorts. Here, the menorah, the candles are set in their place. Must be that he used an intermediary. He used something that was a candle shamish kind of thing, where a match that he took from one to the next. Kasha. So this is a question. So regardless of whether you say that it's degrading to the mitzvah, whether you say that it's diminishing of the flame, either way, we see in the Beis Hamikdash they did that. So our Papa says, no, maybe even though that there were set candles that were in the menorah, but maybe all the wicks were very long, and he was able to take a wick from the far end and get it lit by the menorah, the light candle that was already lit. So Gemara says, but that doesn't help us, because there was one opinion that said, no, even one candle from the next you're not allowed to light, because you're diminishing the flame in the one when you light the other. Kasha, indeed, that's a question. My havala, what is the ultimate halacha? Amar Ravuna B'Rei Yeshua Chazina, hadlaka is a mitzvah, madlikim an er l'ner. Yanacha is a mitzvah, madlikim an er l'ner. Well, it depends. What would be the halacha would depend on what is the halachic concept of lighting the Hanukkah menorah. Is the mitzvah to ignite the menorah, the lighting of the menorah, and it'll have halachic ramifications, as we'll see tomorrow morning? Or do we say no, that the placement of a lit menorah is what creates that halachic status? So if we say the igniting, the lighting of the candle is the mitzvah, so then as soon as you light it, you're doing the mitzvah, and so you can even use another mitzvah as its source. However, if you say the lighting of the candle is not the mitzvah, you know what the mitzvah is? The placement of a lit menorah. Well, then the lighting of the menorah is only a preparatory act for the mitzvah, and then you wouldn't be allowed to take it from another already lit menorah, which is the mitzvah itself. And tomorrow morning we'll see this question of whether or not hadnacha osa mitzvah, is the placement of a lit menorah what creates the mitzvah, or hadlaka osa mitzvah, the igniting, the lighting of the candle that makes the mitzvah. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 7:15.